The price tags did not scream. They crept. A dollar here, a fee there, a smaller package, a longer loan, a subscription that renews while you sleep. Things that once felt normal now feel like small financial traps. This video follows 15 everyday costs that moved from affordable to shocking, using public price data, industry reports, and plain math. By the end, you will see which increases are real, which ones are hidden inside packaging and payment plans, and which habits quietly drain money before people even notice. The math is dry, but the damage is personal and real. Let us start with eggs, because few grocery items show how fragile cheap food can be. For years, eggs were the boring protein. A carton was the thing you tossed into the cart without thinking, because breakfast, baking, and quick dinners all depended on it. Then, outbreaks of bird flu exposed a harsh truth. A cheap food is only cheap when the supply chain is healthy, the flocks are stable, feed costs behave, and every farm in the chain avoids disaster. At the worst point of the recent egg shock, national prices hit levels that felt unreal for something so basic. Even when prices later eased, many families did not feel the old relief, because the memory of paying far more for the same carton changed how people shop. It is about dependence. When millions of households depend on the same low-cost staple, one disease wave can turn breakfast into a budget problem. The most controversial part is that shoppers often blame the store first, but the bigger story begins before the carton ever reaches the shelf. Farms lose laying hens, replacement flocks take time, feed and transport still cost money, and retailers adjust quickly because empty shelves scare customers even more than high prices. Eggs became a national mood because they were supposed to be the last thing people had to worry about. Beef is next, and this one hurts because it changes the family meal. Ground beef used to be the affordable base for burgers, tacos, spaghetti, chili, and quick weeknight cooking. Now many shoppers pause at the meat case and start doing quiet math. The pressure did not come from one single cause. Cattle herds shrank, feed became more expensive, drought hit ranching regions, labor and transport costs stayed heavy, and demand did not disappear. When supply tightens and people still want the product, the cheap cut does not stay cheap. A pound that once felt ordinary can suddenly feel like a premium purchase, especially for families buying several pounds at a time. The strange part is that beef inflation often feels worse than the headline number because people buy meals, not indexes. A small rise per pound becomes a bigger rise when you add buns, cheese, lettuce, sauce, seasoning, fuel to get to the store, and the fact that package sizes rarely match the recipe in your head. Some shoppers switch to chicken, beans, lentils, frozen vegetables, or eggs when eggs are calm again. Others buy less often. But the old idea that ground beef is the cheap default has been badly weakened. The meat case now teaches a quiet lesson. The affordable option can become a luxury not because it changed, but because everything around it did. Coffee may be the most emotional price increase on the list because people do not treat it like a normal drink. They treat it like fuel, comfort, routine, and identity. Ground coffee at the grocery store has climbed sharply in recent years, and the reasons stretch far beyond your kitchen. Coffee is grown in specific climates, and those growing regions face heat, disease, irregular rainfall, shipping pressure, currency swings, and rising labor costs. If harvests are weak in major producing countries, the effect can travel all the way to a small bag on an American shelf. Then comes the second layer, the daily cup outside the home. A coffee that used to feel like a small treat now often comes with a tip screen, flavor up charges, alternative milk charges, and sizes designed to move you upward. The controversy is not that coffee sellers charge money. It is that the product has been redesigned from a simple drink into a habit machine. But repeat that purchase every workday, then add a pastry, then add delivery or a mobile order fee, and suddenly a cheap caffeine habit behaves like a bill. People notice rent and car payments. They often miss coffee because it feels too small to matter. That is exactly why it matters. Fast food used to be the emergency answer when money was tight, time was short, and nobody wanted to cook. That old role is fading. Limited service restaurant prices have kept rising, and the famous value meal is no longer the obvious bargain it once was. Part of the increase is honest. Wages, rent, beef, chicken, potatoes, packaging, utilities, insurance, and card processing fees all cost more. But another part is strategy. Menus have become more complex, with premium sandwiches, app-only deals, bundles, delivery partnerships, and digital boards that can push attention toward higher-margin items. The trick is that customers compare the meal to cooking after a long day, not to the true cost of groceries. That makes convenience powerful. A family can enter thinking they are saving time and leave with a receipt that looks closer to casual dining than fast food. The uncomfortable question is this: if fast food is no longer truly cheap, what is it selling? The answer is speed, habit, and relief. And relief is one of the easiest things to overpay for when people are tired. Groceries as a whole are where the quietest price increase hides, because the shelf does not always raise the sticker loudly. Sometimes the package gets smaller. A bag loses a few ounces. A cereal box looks almost the same from the front, but gets thinner from the side. A snack keeps the familiar shape, but the weight changes. A frozen meal keeps the picture, but the portion feels weaker. This is why many shoppers walk out confused. They bought the same cart, yet the food seems to disappear faster at home. But it is hidden in the human sense because most people shop by memory and shape, not by unit price. The store knows you recognize the color, the box, the aisle, and the habit. You are less likely to notice that the math changed. The sharpest shoppers now compare price per ounce, price per pound, and servings that actually match real life. The rest keep chasing discounts that may only bring the smaller package back to yesterday's normal price. Groceries became expensive not only because prices rose, but because the definition of same item became slippery. Rent is one of the biggest reasons life feels more expensive even when people cut back everywhere else. You can skip a restaurant. You can delay a vacation. You can buy cheaper clothes. But most people cannot simply skip shelter. Rent rises have slowed in some places compared with the worst post-pandemic spikes. Yet the level is still painful because leases reset higher and wages rarely catch up in one clean jump. A national average can look calm while a specific city, college town, suburb, or job market becomes brutal. The mechanics are simple and harsh. When housing supply is tight, when new construction is slow, when insurance and property taxes rise, when landlords face higher financing costs, and when renters compete for the same units, the monthly bill climbs. Rent is controversial because every side thinks the other side is ignoring the real cost. Tenants see a basic need becoming unaffordable. Property owners point to taxes, maintenance, interest rates, and regulations. Both can be true, but the renter still has to pay by the first of the month. This is why rent changes behavior more than almost any other item. People take roommates later in life, delay moving out, move farther from work, or accept smaller spaces. The cheap apartment did not vanish everywhere, but in many places it became a hunt, not a normal option. Starter homes may be the most painful example of a once reachable dream turning into a locked door. The old story was simple: work, save, buy a modest first home, build equity, then move up later. That path still exists for some buyers, but it is much harder. Home prices climbed, mortgage rates rose from the ultra-low period, insurance became more expensive in many regions, property taxes followed values upward, and the supply of smaller affordable homes stayed limited. The result is not just a higher sale price. It is a higher monthly payment, a higher down payment target, and a higher cost of being wrong. A small repair that once felt manageable can now arrive after a giant closing cost, a stretched mortgage, and a bank account already drained by moving. The hidden change is that the cheapest homes are often not cheap after repairs, location trade-offs, commuting costs, and insurance are included. They are not asking for mansions. Many are asking for a safe, ordinary place that earlier generations considered normal. That is why this issue feels explosive. Housing is not just a product. It decides who gets stability, who builds wealth, who has space for children, and who stays permanently one rent increase away from panic. Cars used to have a clear entry level. There were basic sedans, small hatchbacks, and simple models for buyers who just needed transportation. That market has thinned out. New vehicles are packed with safety technology, larger screens, sensors, driver assistance systems, bigger bodies, and higher consumer expectations. Some save lives, but they also raise the floor. At the same time, automakers earn more from trucks, sport utility vehicles, and higher trims than from stripped-down economy cars. So the market naturally leans toward vehicles that cost more. The average new vehicle transaction price now sits near levels that would have sounded absurd to many buyers years ago. The payment is where the shock hides. A long loan can make a high price look manageable, but it may stretch the debt across 6 or 7 years. That means people are not only buying a car, they are buying years of interest, depreciation risk, insurance costs, and repair exposure. The controversial truth is that affordability did not just disappear because companies became greedy or consumers became foolish. It disappeared because the whole car market learned to normalize expensive. Once the cheap models leave the showroom, buyers cannot choose what is no longer offered. Auto insurance is the bill that turns car ownership into a moving target. A driver can buy the same car, drive carefully, avoid tickets, and still watch premiums rise. Vehicle repair costs are higher because modern cars contain sensors, cameras, specialized parts, aluminum panels, software, and expensive safety systems. Medical costs are higher. Severe weather damages more vehicles. Theft patterns change. Replacement values remain elevated. Lawsuits and claim payouts affect the pool. Insurers price risk across large groups, so careful drivers can still feel the pain of a market-wide reset. The anger comes from the fact that insurance is not optional for most drivers. If you need a car to work, you need coverage. And when coverage rises after the car payment already stretched the budget, the real cost of transportation jumps again. The part people miss is that a cheaper monthly car payment can still lead to an expensive ownership package if the model is costly to insure, costly to repair, or popular with thieves. The smart move is no longer just asking, "Can I afford the car?" It is asking, "Can I afford the car after the insurance company, repair shop, lender, and registration office all take their turn?" Electricity used to be one of those bills people complained about seasonally, then forgot. Now it is becoming a central household cost. More homes rely on air conditioning during hotter summers. More people work from home. More devices stay plugged in. Utilities face grid upgrades, storm recovery, fuel costs, transmission needs, and the cost of building cleaner or more resilient energy systems. The price per kilowatt hour may look small on paper, but small numbers become heavy when multiplied by every appliance, every hour, every month. The most frustrating part is that consumers are told to conserve, yet modern life keeps adding electric demand. Charge the phone, run the router, power the laptop, cool the home, wash clothes, heat water. Maybe charge a vehicle. And because electricity is often billed after use, the pain arrives late. The habit already happened. The air conditioner already ran. The dryer already spun. Then the statement appears. The hidden lesson is that electricity is priced like a utility, but experienced like a lifestyle tax. People are not just paying for power. They are paying for climate, infrastructure, comfort, and the growing number of things that quietly became electric. Childcare is one of the most shocking costs because it can rival rent, tuition, or a second mortgage, yet families often need it before they are financially strongest. Parents with young children are usually early in their careers, still paying off debts, building savings, or trying to buy a home. Then childcare arrives as a massive monthly bill. Safe childcare requires staff, background checks, low child-to-caregiver ratios, rent, insurance, food, cleaning, training, and compliance. The controversial part is that workers in the field are often not highly paid, yet parents still pay enormous amounts. That tells you the system is structurally expensive, not simply luxurious. Money gets swallowed by the labor-intensive nature of care. You cannot automate a toddler room the way you automate a warehouse. You need human attention. The result is a trap for many families. One parent may work mostly to pay for care, but leaving the workforce can damage future earnings, retirement savings, and career growth. Childcare used to be framed as a private family issue. Now it behaves like national infrastructure. If families cannot afford care, workers disappear from the labor force, employers lose talent, and children enter life inside a system already shaped by money. College tuition is not a simple villain story, but it is still one of the clearest examples of sticker shock. Public colleges, private colleges, community colleges, grants, scholarships, room, board, fees, books, and transportation all create different prices, so the real cost varies widely. But families do not experience college as an abstract average. They experience the bill that arrives after admissions excitement fades. For decades, the promise was that college was the reliable ladder into the middle class. State funding patterns changed, campus services expanded, buildings and technology cost money, administration grew in many places, and families were told debt was an investment. The dangerous part is that the price is often discussed in yearly terms, while the debt follows people for years after graduation. A teenager can choose a major before fully understanding interest, labor markets, graduate school pressure, or the risk of leaving without a degree. The controversy is not whether education has value. It clearly can. The controversy is whether the pricing system asks young people to make adult financial bets before they have adult financial power. That is why college feels less like a purchase and more like a gamble wrapped in hope. Postage and shipping used to feel almost invisible. A small package felt cheap to send. Returns were often free. Then, the delivery economy changed. Fewer people send traditional letters, but the delivery network still has to reach almost every address. Packages grew with online shopping. Fuel, labor, trucks, sorting equipment, security, and last-mile delivery became more expensive. Carriers also learned that customers love convenience until the fee appears. Now shipping costs show up as postage increases, delivery surcharges, minimum order thresholds, return fees, packaging charges, and faster delivery upgrades. The trick is that online shopping separates the emotional purchase from the delivery math. You decide you want the item first. Only later do you see shipping, tax, and return rules. By then, many people accept the fee because abandoning the cart feels like wasted time. Even free shipping is not magic. It is usually built into prices, memberships, seller fees, or minimum spending. The old stamp was a tiny symbol of affordable connection. The modern shipping fee is a reminder that convenience has weight, distance, fuel, labor, and a business model attached to it. Streaming subscriptions were supposed to save people from expensive cable bundles. Then the market changed. Shows scattered across different platforms. Ad-free tiers became more expensive. Some services added ads to cheaper plans. Password sharing got restricted. Live sports, premium content, and bundled packages pulled prices upward. The funny part is that streaming still feels cheap one service at a time. The problem is the stack. One platform for movies, one for prestige shows, one for sports, one for kids, one for music, one cloud subscription, one gaming pass, one news app, and suddenly the anti-cable solution starts acting like cable with better branding. The monthly renewal is the key. A subscription does not ask you to buy again. It asks you to forget you are still paying. That is why the smartest viewers rotate services instead of collecting them. They subscribe for the show they want, cancel, then move on. Streaming became expensive because the industry discovered that small automatic charges are easier to tolerate than one large bill, even when the total ends up looking familiar. Concert tickets and live events are the final shock because they expose how pricing changes when emotion meets scarcity. That emotion gives sellers power. Add service fees, facility fees, resale markets, dynamic pricing, pre-sales, fan clubs, parking, food, drinks, and travel, and the night out can become a serious financial event. The base ticket gets attention, but the full cost is the real story. Many fans do not discover the final price until they are deep in the checkout process, already imagining themselves there. That is not an accident. The purchase path often builds commitment before revealing the full bill. The controversial point is that live entertainment now sorts fans by willingness and ability to pay, not just by love for the artist or team. Some people still find affordable local events, small venues, weekday shows, and community performances. But major events have moved into luxury territory for many households. The cheap night out did not disappear everywhere. It got pushed away from the biggest stages, where nostalgia, status, and scarcity can turn a simple ticket into a financial decision. So what is the pattern? The shock is not one price. It is the pileup. Eggs show supply fragility. Beef shows how a cheap protein can lose its place. Coffee shows how a small habit becomes a bill. Fast food shows that convenience can replace value. Groceries show how packages can shrink while loyalty stays. Rent and homes show what happens when shelter outruns income. Cars and insurance show how ownership costs hide beyond the sticker. Electricity shows how modern life plugs itself into the meter. Childcare and college show how families pay heavily for the future. Shipping, streaming, and tickets show how fees, renewals, and emotion make spending feel normal until the total hurts. The best defense is not panic, it is noticing. Check unit prices. Question convenience. Compare the full cost, not the first price. Cancel what you forgot. Price insurance before buying the car. Treat fees like part of the item because they are. If this hit close to home, like the video, comment which once affordable item shocked you the most, and share this with someone who still thinks small price increases do not matter.